Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot coming at you with the weekly comic book roundup. We've covered almost all this week's books, but we still got a couple more to go. These would have been in other videos, except that they're both significantly longer than usual, and likely would have dragged out whichever video they ended up in. First off, we've got Amazing Fantasy number 1000. Celebrating 30 years of, or not 30, 60. 60 years of Spider-Man. So, it's a one-shot. It's got stories from various short stories from various creative teams. Got Just Some Guy by Anthony Falcone and Michael Cho. Sinister 60 by Dan Slott and Jim Chung. Spider-Man vs. Conspiraton by Armando Iannucci and Ryan Stegman. The Kid's Got a Good Eye by Rainbow Rowell and Oliver Quapel. In the Flesh by Hoche Anderson and Giuseppe Camacoli. Slaves of the Witch Queen by Kurt Busiek and Terry and Rachel Dodson. You Get It by Jonathan Hickman and Marco Gicchetto. And With Great Power by Neil Gaiman and Steve McNiven. Yes, Neil Gaiman, creator of Sandman, among others. And American Gods, among others. But yeah. So, Just Some Guy is about a low-level thief who pretty much just waits till the big supervillain attacks on New York to pull jobs, because most of the superheroes are a little preoccupied to deal with a guy doing a smash and grab job. Most of them, not all of them. After all, he's continually picked up by Spider-Man during all these various events. Eventually, he gets after being sent to Rikers, he hooks up with the Enforcers, and he basically offers to be bait to draw out Spider-Man so that they can take him down. And Spidey, and the guy realizes, why are you always picking on me? And he's just some guy, and Spider-Man's like, you think the crimes you commit don't matter? That nobody's ever gonna get hurt because of you? Brazier's, the guy does matter. And that he's not just some guy to Spider-Man. Then we got Sinister 60th. So it's Spider-Man's 60th birthday. He's fighting the Vulture, a new Vulture, whose outfit looks a lot like Starling's, though it's clearly not Starling. But Peter takes her down, while also having to talk to MJ, who's waiting for him at his favorite restaurant. On his way there, he stops a mugging and gets shot. The mugger then shoots him a few more times and runs off. A few days later, while going through the healing process, it's things like, oh, it should have been the Sinister Six, all of them at once, or Carnage, or the Goblin, not just some burglar with a gun. But then he says, going out like Uncle Ben almost feels right. Just wishes he could have seen MJ one last time. When he comes to, he says, no one's here, and it's like, oh, no, there's people lined up into the street to say wish you well. But shortly after MJ visits, the heart monitor flatlines. Everyone rushes in, but it's not. Peter just went out, jumped out saw a mugging going on outside and went to stop it because, well, Spider-Man. Then we've got Spider-Man versus Conspiraton. While talking with Aunt May, she does something odd that catches his mind. And while swinging through town, people reading the newspapers are mentioning some weird things. And Jameson asks Peter to snap a couple pictures for the Pulitzer. And apparently, one of the papers says he's won the Pulitzer. Well, turns out that's all, but the Peter analyzes a copy of the Bugle, and it's apparently laced with some low-level hallucinogens. But finds the culprit, giant armored guy by the name of Conspiraton. Turns out to just be a kid. And Jameson isn't too happy about having been duped by the whole thing, and so he declares that starting the next day, not doing the paper anymore. No, moving to the internet. That's where the truth is. Oh, my sweet summer child. Then we got Kid's Got a Good Eye. It's a slow day. Peter intends to snap some pictures for the Bugle, to sell to the Bugle, but nothing's going on. So he takes some slice of life for New York pictures. But Jameson isn't digging him. But he does find one that he took a Spider-Man with ice cream on it. Having spilled ice cream on his mask and suit. He buys that one. But Robbie sees one of the pictures and says, well, kid's got a good eye, and the picture's going to be on the page 3 of the Bugle. Then we got In the Flesh. At a psych ward, people are talking about the various patients, including a young woman who's always scratching at her arms, claiming there's spiders under her skin. The hospital catches fire one night, however, and she tries to make her way out. Suddenly a giant spider is upon her. It's actually Spider-Man, and he even unmasks himself to her. And helps her get out. Saying he'll check on her soon, make sure that she's doing all right. Then we've got Slaves of the Witch Queen, which is actually a follow-up to a backup story, another story from Amazing Fantasy number 16. The Witch Queen, who appears to have a kind of generic ancient civilization motif going on, has arrived with her horde of mummies and other hench people. her henchmen appear to have more of an ancient Egyptian motif, but apparently she's been recruiting people and to be slaves for her empire. Usually, people who need to disappear, and one of them told her about New York. So she decided to come check it out. And so Spidey takes her to show her New York, and well, it kind of changes her mind a little bit. But turns out that Rocco, the guy that told her about what New York was like, well, tried to escape, but Spidey gets him, and so he can actually serve the time for his crime. Then we've got You Get It. Basically, Spider-Man comes upon a collection of Spider-Man variants, and kind of just, like, hey, maybe we could ask for, maybe some advice on coping mechanisms and, whatnot, but and the other Spider-Mans mess with him. But no, they all have their hard luck stories because, well, it's a constant in the Marvel universe. Spider-Man is one of the unluckiest superheroes there is. And finally, we wrap things up with Great Power. It's autobiographical. Neil Gaiman talked about being a Spider-Man fan and reading the reprints of Spider-Man stories in POW magazine. He even had an iron-on transfer which he ironed onto his shirt while reading a copy of Free, or a POW. Spider-Man shows up and they talk a bit. He calls Neil his biggest fan. Years later, a friend of his, Jay, and Neil were talking about Steve Ditko and Spider-Man for a television interview. Well, it turns out that Jay knows Steve Ditko and took Neil to meet him. Jay and Steve, they talked. And sitting on the couch was Spider-Man. And so Neil sits down next to him and starts talking. And, Spider-Man's kind of cold. And he's like, I meet a lot of people. Explaining that he actually wrote Spider-Man for the first time ever in 1602. More Peter than Spider-Man, but still. And as they leave, the old POW spider gun gets Web Center Spider-Matic gun for an issue of POW gets dangled out the window to Neil on a web, with Spider-Man asking if Neil had lost it. And that is where the issue ends. Well, actually, no, not quite. Not quite. There is still one more story from the late Mike Pasciullo and Todd Nayak. Along Came a Rhino. Sadly, Mike Pasciullo passed away in the past few months after having completed a story for Amazing Fantasy 1000. The story is a series that Pasciullo pitched. However, the project did not get off the ground. However, five issues had been written, and so the last story is a scene from that. Basically, new hero in town by the name of the Rhino. He's able to, and he helps out Spidey. He's helping Spidey out, but he's also taking his lumps, and Spider-Man tries to, help him out, give him advice, and very much, keep, you know, explaining what great with what it mean what with great power comes great responsibility means to him, and that is where our issue ends. This was actually a lot. This was really great. I've been hearing about it, the one shot, for months, especially with Dan Slott talking up on Twitter, and just being floored by the fact that he was going to be contributing a story to a book that was also going to have Neil Gaiman writing a story in it. Anyway, moving on to our last book of the week, we've got DC's Saved by the Bell Reve, #1. I don't know why I said #1, but because it's not going to be #2. So this is just a DC one shot. It's got a handful of stories, all school related. So we've got sophomore year, featuring the cast of Gotham Academy. One of the kids from Gotham Academy, Olive, has apparently disappeared, and Mia, another student, is getting all of her stuff out of her room to keep it together and keep it for when she comes back. She does, and she's trying to find her journal. While there, she runs into another student who gives her some grief, and then looking out the window, they notice one of the other students who's keeping an eye on something on the grounds. So the three of them go to investigate. It appears that possibly the new groundskeeper is Solomon Grundy. As for the journal, but the Grundy plants an olive tree, and it's labeled as being an olive tree, so Mia adds an apostrophe in an S to olive. Well, it turns out that one of the students actually does have the journal and keeping it for himself, apparently. Next, we've got the Suicide Squad in high school lows. So, the Suicide Squad has apparently blown up a private school. Waller is not happy with them, especially seeing as how they made Harley was a guidance counselor during all this. But they infiltrated the school and largely taking over various positions that opened up as the school went on, including King Shark being an English teacher. But the school was constantly being attacked by a group called the Cult of Taurus, and so the squad was dealing with them. Weasel was being a lunch lady, and it was while being actually a competent guidance counselor that Harley started to realize something was up. Turns out, though, that the person they thought they were there to protect was actually a demon lord, or the son of a demon lord. Utilized some chaos magic, low level kind of stuff, so that no one blinked at the idea of, the English teacher's an anthropomorphic shark, or the lunch lady looks like a giant weasel. Though the chaos magic didn't seem to affect Weasel because he doesn't have enough of a mind to manipulate. But it is pointed out that they did save the world, which is the only reason why Waller likely isn't flipping all the switches. Next, we've got the Super Sons in Back to School. So Damian Wayne and John Kent are, it's the night before the first day of school. West Reve, nice name, I gotta say, West Reve. But there's a new student, and the bullies are picking on them. So John and Damien do what they can to, stand up for them. turns out the student is non-binary, and they explain what non-binary means, and Damien opts to help her by teaching her a bit about standing up for oneself. Well, John listens. Later, one of the bullies shows up and decides to mess with them, and so they deal with the bully quite well. Which brings us to Green Arrow and Speedy and Earn It Back. Set in the early days of Green Arrow's career, before he had his goatee even. But guidance counselor at Speedy's school is saying, that Roy's not doing great, and so talking with Flash and Batman, Ollie decides to bench Speedy for a while, hoping that his grades pick up, and they do. But when for example, when the rest of the Titans show up, at least wanted us to see Roy, well, Ollie shoos him away. Batman has another talk with Ollie about the whole thing, kind of further explaining things, and eventually Roy earns it back, and Ollie explains, I kind of screwed up there, and I want to try and make things better. Which brings us to our next story, the Tiny Titans in Peacemaking. The Tiny Titans arrive at Belle Reve. Got a sign that's and well, yeah, he various inmates, including King Shark, Peacemaker, Polka Dot Man, Captain Cold, Icicle, Iceberg, and of course Harley. But and Waller shows up asking what's going on and blows up Ralph, who's stuck next to the cold guys. As she storms off, Waller states that Belle Reve's a prison. Turns out the sign that the place we're heading to is Granny's Bell Pepper Rave Garden. Oops. So they leave, and the flyer's left behind, though before Peacemaker, King Shark, and Harley can, take advantage of that, they get ordered back to their cells. Next, we've got This Is Why, featuring Black Lightning. It's Black Lightning explaining why it is he took the position in Lex Luthor's that he did of Secretary of Education in Lex Luthor's cabinet, and talking about some of his past as a teacher and helping students, and even using the inactive JLA watchtower for field trip purposes to recreate historical events via their holographic training simulations. Also having Metamorpho help out with science class. But he explained the whole thing to his daughter, though, and he explains that he's working for he works for a man like Lex Luthor, so that someday in the future Thunder won't have to. Next, we've got Azrael and How Angels Are Made. This takes place between the recent Azrael stories and the more recent issue 1 of his ongoing. But wandering through the mountains, he comes upon the remains of a school that he attended, which was run by the Order of St. Tomas. He asked questions such as how angels are made, and was punished in a rather cruel manner, which was all part of the Order's plan. But when the system takes over, young Jean Paul gets out of the box that he was put in and attacks the teacher. When a couple of operatives of the Order take him, and the idea being, they'll remove the memories. The father is then told that next time not to go so easy on Jean Paul, use some actual cruelty. And finally, we've got A Night Off featuring Batgirl and Nightwing. Prom's coming up at Gotham High School. One of the other students asked Barbara if she voted for prom king and queen. Apparently Barbara forgot what was happening. But Dick asks her out, goes to pick her up in one of Bruce's limos. On the way, however, they end up embroiled in a chase, in Mr. Freeze being chased down by GCPD, stealing an armored car. Apparently Batman has set up the limo to release Barbara and Dick's costumes, or slight versions of them. And so, but they start dealing with Freeze and his goons when Batman shows up and tells them, hey, get out of here, enjoy your night off. However, when they arrive at the prom, they're too late for the crowning of the prom court, and apparently Barbara technically won the vote, but they arrived late, so the runner-up and crown, the student asking if if Barbara had voted yet, was crowned prom queen. And so Dick and Babs thinking about it, and since Freeze said he was robbing an armored truck as a favor for a friend, well, they think maybe it's possible that Annie arranged the whole thing. And Babs just says, that's cutthroat, even for Gotham. And the issue ends with Dick and Babs dancing. And that is it for this week's roundup. This was a lot of fun. Really liked the Super Sun stories. The Super Sun story, not so much fun, but good story. I liked it. Same with the Azrael story. But anyway, that is going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off saying, live long and rock hard.